Yeah. All right. Tired of waiting. Peace, everyone. Peace, Yogini. Yeah, I just finished. This has been a teaching so far. I mean, the strong is not over. Peace, alien black girl. Peace, Baba Byron. Peace, Sister Zakia. You know. I didn't see Anwar. Anwar's in here. Peace, Anwar. Um, yeah, so far this has been a real heavy teaching, strong in, and turn my music down. And yeah, I just finished teaching this class for a group via Skype. So I'm already in like uh, video conferencing mode. So I said I would just do something, you know. After I put up one of the recent videos, right? A lot of people have been asking me about um, what I was referring to in the reading, what I shared about assets. You know, when I said it's a time really to look into really investing in your commodities because of what's coming down the pipe, right? So I'm gonna just share something real quick and real simple, right? Because really the writing is on the wall, right? So Ford is laying off 40,000 people, right? AT&T is laying off thousands of people. Toys R Us is closed. Amazon has put a freeze on hiring. Starbucks is getting rid of 350 people at their corporate office. Excuse me. Verizon is letting go 5,000 people. Then you have the GM layoff, right? So you got the Ford layoff, you got the GM layoff, you got the Amazon hiring freeze. Macy's is letting go of thousands of people. J.C. Penney, Sears is cutting another 63 stores. Also included that is another. Kmart is about to be gone. Um, Walmart is closing 84 Sam's Clubs, right? So we could just go down the list, right? So a lot of people have been, not a lot, but same in the UK. Yeah, it's been a worldwide thing. You know, right now in the Sudan, they're rioting over the bread prices, which is basically the food prices. So I mean, from the UK to the Sudan to here in the States. So I'm just giving like a little extra, you know, a little extra intel, right? Not going too crazy with it, but just a little extra. Because like I said, I just came out of a teach. Like last night, I had I was teaching a group of young people. You know, you guys probably, some of you know, I still do rites of passage really heavy. So last night I had to teach a group, which is gonna be, I think it's gonna be like 40 something youth. Last night for the first night we had maybe like, I don't know, it was hard to count because it was packed in there. Maybe about 30. But then the more are going to come later. So I started the rites of passage experience last night. So, and then today I had to teach like several classes. You know, like I was just sharing via Skype. So one of the things that came up, I had shared with the youth. You know, and they're like high school students, right? So you know that would be between like, well, some of them even younger, 8th grade as well. Like so, say from 13 to like 16, 17. And one of the things that I had spoken to him about was, you know, formulas. Like I was talking to him about confidence. And, you know, because I was asking him, well, you know, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? You know, the typical adult questions we ask young people. What do you want to be when you grow up? And a lot of the answers were very formulaic in that someone told you you could do this or you could do that or you could do that. And what I had shared with them, I said, well, the world is changing. And a lot of people my age are going to give you guidance and advice based on what may have worked, you know, or what we were told that was working when by our elders when we were younger. But the world is much different. And really, the internet has allowed a lot of leveling of the playing field. So I was sharing with them, you don't necessarily have to look at this spreadsheet, of what your future could be that people 30, 40, 50, 60 years are giving to you, and pick that. You can be a little bit more creative. And they were really struggling with that idea. That was very difficult for them. Like, it was like you could hear a pin drop. It was like kind of a little awkward moment. It was like, well, what could I be outside of what I was told that I could be? Right? That was hard for them to imagine. So I said something to them. I said, in 10 years, we're not even going to have accountants. In 20 years, we're not even going to have lawyers. I said the world is changing so quickly that certain industries that are now suffering are being phased out of the world dynamic, right? So the things that you're being told today are going to do all of these great things tomorrow are not even going to exist. So you really want to pick something and kind of, or innovate something for yourself that keeps you ahead of where the world is going. So you got to obviously know where the world is going. You got to stay in tune. So one of the things I shared, I was like, whatever you do should be related to robotics, right? When in doubt, artificial intelligence, right? Now, you got movies and things like that where people will scare you away from artificial intelligence because of the evilness of it, but it's how you use it. But the reality is, all of those different positions are going to be replaced by AI. That's just what it is. So you need to look into industries where you're maintaining the AI, you're updating the system software of the AI, although some of them can update themselves, which is that's a whole nother Terminator level scary. But you need to be servicing the AI, maintaining them, building them, upgrading the software, right? So I was sharing that, and I said, so even in the industries that you want to go into, think about, can this be replaced by a robot, right? So it's a real simple thing. So with that, going back to what I shared on the reading, right? The little 40 seconds that I had shared, it seems that it's gotten a lot of people in a little bit of a, not a frenzy, but definitely a question and answer. They asking a lot, like, what should I do? What does that mean? What should I do? First, you got to realize with all these closures and with all these layoffs and all these hiring freezes, you have to imagine how that has a domino effect on other things, right? And a part of us being, because most of the people who follow my page are the woke ones, right? I'm sorry, I gotta laugh because it's just silly. But they consider themselves to have vision and foresight beyond the average person. Well, then you shouldn't get caught up in the melee of what the average person gets caught up into because you're woke, right? But some people, they're not just sleeping, they're in a coma, so they're waking up to sleep. They still got a long way to go, to actually be erect, or like I say, perpendicular to the square, right? So yeah, we're just coming into a space now where there's going to be a key thing that people are going to have to kind of dig into, and that's the idea of forced unity. We're coming into a space now where people are going to understand that, listen, we don't have the luxury to argue amongst ourselves and to disagree and to nitpick, and even to nitpick about information that really doesn't even matter. We're not going to be able to do that, really soon. We talk about, let's say, like an economic collapse, right? Which I know when people use words like economic collapse or serious depression and things like that, financial depression, to the average, to a lot of people, it sounds a little loony, almost like when you say doomsday prepper, right? It sounds it sounds a little loony to a lot of people, but if you think about it, I'm not saying that you haven't thought about it, because maybe you have, but no one's a bigger doomsday prepper than governments. Like the U.S. government, for instance, is the biggest prepper, survivalist, doomsday prepper organization that I've ever come across, right? I mean, from underground secret bunkers that they have to the massive amounts of money that are spent on the defense budget, massive amounts of military personnel, stored food, all of these different contingency plans in the event that there's an electromagnetic pulse, or there's nuclear war, or there's civil unrest, right? You got all these different things that the U.S. government puts in place in order to cover themselves in the event of some form of catastrophe, right? But if the average person says, I'm going to do some prepping to cover myself in the event of a catastrophe, your family and friends will say that you're crazy, right? So I'm also sharing this as some like encouragement to the people out there who are maybe they're dealing with alternative thought and ideas and reasoning, and you might have family that say you're crazy, or like you may be learning how, you may be taking handgun training, or you may be learning how to grow your own food, or learning how to purify water, and things like that, and you have family that kind of, ridicules you or whatever. And, I'm just kind of giving you some encouragement. I need to service my incense. So, it couldn't have went out. Not that quick. My incense don't went out. Now I don't even want to finish the video. I got more. Well, I'm not gonna go there. All right. Anyway, so like I was saying, so that idea of prepping, a lot of times people look at it like it's just like that's for loony birds, but they don't consider how much prepping the governments do, right? And they may know something that you may not be in tune with, and that's one of the reasons why we stay woke, or why we use certain spiritual tools, or we lock into a natural level of intuition and instinct so that we can prepare for what's coming properly. And like I said, forced unity is on the way. This idea of everybody spending exorbitant amounts of money in order to live on their own and to have their own space, or buying these huge houses so I don't have to interact with this person or interact with that person. That's leaving. We're in a place now where people who live on the same street, who have the same ideology, may find themselves living in the same house together in order to pool resources, right? But, like I said, the idea of the collapse, right? So let me just hit you with something on the collapse. It already started. Just like the New World Order. Like, I have people sometimes who ask me about the New World Order. It's almost over. It started a long time ago. The social New World Order, not your personal New World Order. Your personal New World Order starts when this thing comes online, and you stop using these two halves to try to figure out everything in life. Because this thing is so doggone finite, it's not going to really get you but so far. It's only going to cover the circumference of what you've experienced so far. But this thing will shoot way beyond. It's like a laser, man. And when this thing comes online, New World Order. You get caught up in the rapture, and you flying through the clouds, right? So, peace, again. So, yeah, oh, my music stuck. So, like I was saying, one hand. Let's see, yeah. So like I was saying, all right, cool. Yeah, there's gonna be a level of forced unity, right? But aside from that, the collapse already started. We're already here, right? Let's say if you're 60 years old and you've been working for the GM or the Ford plant for 40 years, right? And you just received that layoff because they did it right after Christmas. That was crazy. So they announced them in 2018 that they were laying everybody off in January of 2019. So yeah, you have your Christmas. We're going to get our money for the Christmas season. Because remember, that's $1 billion take. $650 billion, right? That's $1 billion take. Easter alone makes $16 billion. It's a $16 billion event. Easter. Christmas, $650 billion, right? So, you know, we're gonna get that Christmas money, then we're gonna fire you. All right? So if you think about individuals in that position, let's say you're 50, even 50 years old, right? 40 years old. You've been working there for that amount of time, and they offered them severance packages, right? So with the severance packages, they will get for every year that they worked there. I forget how they worked out but I did the math. You would have to have worked there 17 years in order to get a full year of pay on your severance package, right? And then it maxes out basically at a year. So essentially, between a year and I think a year and a half, you can be covered as far as with the severance package for what you were making before. But again, you're 45, 50 years old, you've been working there all your life. The Ford plant or the GM plant is the only business in the town that you live in. So it's not like you're going to get laid off from there and then you're just going to go somewhere. Because also Lowe's is having massive closures, right? So it's not like you're going to leave Ford or GM and say, I'm just going to go work at the Lowe's at the Home Depot. Because they're closing too, right? And you're at an age where most people are not rushing to hire you. After 35, your hiring market value dips considerably after 35. So we're talking about people maybe 45, 50 years old. It's very hard to jump from job to job at that age. And at that age, you may have 2 or 3 children in college. You may have a mortgage. You may have undergone some medical, you may have some medical installment plan bills that you're still paying off, right? And you lose your gig. And you live in a town where there's nothing else. The Ford plant, Home Depot, John Deere tractor, and the lumber mill, right? Because a lot of times the plants are in areas like that. So the collapse has started. For those people, that would be a catastrophic event. No doubt, Yogini. That would be a catastrophic event. Losing your placement in that sense, or losing your position in that sense. So the collapse already started. The economic collapse has started. And it's only going to get worse. Right? So for those who are still expecting companies or the government to take care of them, I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you at this point other than stop thinking like that. There has to be some serious do-for-selfism. Some serious do-for-selfism at this point. And again, like I said, if you were one of those individuals, I have a relative who worked for Babies R Us, which is a subsidiary of Toys R Us. And that closed down. So now they've been without a job. So that by itself, right? The collapse has started. So this is a time where not only you should be expanding your means, but when I spoke about commodities, a lot of people were like, can you expand on what you meant by commodities? I know that's code word for I don't know what the word commodity means. I know what that means, all right? So for all of you who asked me about that, let me say this to you. If I have to give you the basic definition of a commodity, and you're too lazy to look it up, or you haven't been investing in the market or some market up until this point, me giving you the definition of commodities now ain't going to save you. And let me just say that. Every person who asked me was a male. All right? And I know some of you guys feel, you probably a little butthurt right now. But I'm not going to say your name. You know who you were, though. I got text. I got WhatsApp message. I got inboxed on IG. I got emailed. What do you mean by commodity? Could you expand on what you mean by a commodity? You don't know what the word means. you're in trouble. Your whole family is in trouble because you thought things were always going to be the way they are. You thought everything, I'm always going to go to the bank and go to the ATM and take out money. It's going to be there. I'm always going to hit a switch in my house and the lights are going to come on. I'm always going to turn the key in my car and it's going to turn on. Peace, Baba Randy. You may not understand that empires rise and fall. And this one has been here for a very short time, the Empire of America. It's a very new country. If you really look at how old it really is, it's 200 and something years old. And it's almost done. 200 something years, and look at the damage they've done to the planet in that short amount of time. You got a different kind of animal that resides here. Not to mention the food stamp situation, right? Because right now we're going through a government. Because I know, like OG Max, I know you're in Canada, so we're dealing with a partial government shutdown here in the States right now. And Trump is saying he'll let this go on for years, right? And it's not really Trump's fault. This is a plan. This is a plan. Just like if Obama didn't have the power to do all this stuff for black people, like, yeah, he would do this for us and he would do that for that, but they got his hands tied. Stupid, slow thinking. But let's just say if that was the case, if Obama didn't have all that power, then neither would Trump. So when you guys are seeing this stuff going on, I don't think it's just one person waking up in the middle of the night in their bed like, aha, I know what I'm going to do next. It's not like that. So we live in a debt system. So because it's a debt system, there's certain things there's always going to be bubbles. There's always going to be bursts, and then there's always going to be pops because it's a debt system. There's not nearly as much money circulating in the system as they would try to make you believe. Even the money you get, you notice how much new money, for those of us who are a little older, you notice how much new money you get now? Like when you take out money out of ATM or whatever, it's usually new bills. Like there's a lot of money being printed, right? But even with all the money being printed, there's not as much in circulation because they're pushing everything towards credit. Here's a simple one. Talk about economic collapse, right? I'm going to give you a simple thing, right? I caught this the other day because I caught myself doing it. You know how when you go to the store and like they have the new cards now, some of them have the chip. Pretty much most cards now are chipped. And sometimes they'll ask you, even though the machine will only take a chip, if you're in the supermarket or whatever, they'll say, oh, do you have a chip? And I swear, I know some of y'all are going to think I'm loony, but I don't care what you think. I think they're telling cashiers and whatnot to say that. Because what are you going to say? Yes, I have a chip. Think about what you just said. Yes, I have a chip. Do you have a chip? Yes, I have a chip. So what do you think that's preparing you for? To have a chip. To have a chip implanted in you. Because you've already been saying it. Yeah, I have a chip. There's things that you're being prepared for. Think about when you go to the bank sometimes, or you go to I travel a lot, right? So I travel around the country. I travel in and out of the country. I'm always traveling. I'm always going through issues sometimes with my card when I go to charge something, and they sometimes it doesn't work. My card there's a block on it because I'm in another country and they didn't know I was going to be traveling, so they put a freeze on it because, there's some suspicious activity on your card. Oh, that was me just trying to charge up a bottle of water, whatever, right? But what it does is it starts to condition you to get ready for that moment when you go to the ATM or whatever and try to take money out, and it doesn't work, right? So they're making it harder and harder for you to get your cash, right? And certain banks like Wells Fargo, right now, with Wells Fargo, you can't even pay your mortgage with cash. And I've done that a bunch of times, right? Just different mortgages, like just had some money in my pocket because I also deal in cash business with certain things I do. Went in here's the money for my mortgage this month. They don't let you do that now? Certain places won't even let you pay. Like if you have a Chase credit card, some places won't even let you come into the bank and pay for your mortgage or your credit card in cash. So you have to go from debt system to debt system. And let's think about what's happening. Like, again. Oh, and I read that, OG Maxwell. Your cousin is looking at. Let me read this. Is looking at. Was just sharing with my cousin how fruitful the Arisha podcast is. He's lucky enough to tap into your live tonight. Oh, cool. I didn't see all that. I didn't want it to scroll by and miss it. But yeah. So there's a movement now where you're being discouraged from taking your money out. You're being discouraged from having cash, and in most banks now they don't allow you to store cash in your safety deposit box. Now think about what that means, right? So let's just say if there was a crash tomorrow and it was a bank holiday, and you go into the bank and you try to take some money out, right? And there's a problem with this ATM, there's been a problem with this transaction, please contact your bank. And there's a long line behind the ATM and everybody's getting the same thing. There has been an error with your transaction, please contact your lending institution. And you going from ATM to ATM and they're all saying the same thing, please contact your lending institution. Right? So then you would say, okay, well, I got to get some water, I got to get some food, I got to get whatever I need for my family. What would you do? You would use cash, right? But what if you're now moving in a space where it's kind of a cashless society? You have maybe $20 at home or no money at home. That's why I was going to the ATM to get some money, right? Because you're used to now using your Apple Pay and your Google Pay and your card with the chip because you're chipped and all of these different things, right? So you're being discouraged in really insidious ways, Oh, you're welcome, Moonchild. Moonchild Witch. You're being encouraged in very slick and crafty, shrewd ways to remove things. And of course, we know the money is fiat currency. We know that. So we don't have to get into that whole thing. But just like in the 1930s when gold was outlawed and it was confiscated, you're coming to a place now, like I said, you can't even store cash in safety deposit boxes. So let's just say you said, okay, I want to prepare in case there's an emergency. Let me put $10,000 in the safety deposit box, boom, and have it there for me. You're not even allowed to do that anymore in a lot of banks, right? So now think about when I said in that reading, commodities. So make it easy. For those of you contacting me, shame on you, you men. Because you men should know about this stuff. If you have families and you have women who are putting their trust in you, you should know about money. That's unacceptable, man. That's unacceptable that y'all don't know the basics of investing. What do you do aside from having sex with her? What are you providing? I don't want to get off into all of that, but because we're talking about something else. But shame on you. And I know shame is something we've removed out of our vernacular here, but I still use shame. Shame is still very important, especially in a communal setting. Shame on you, right? So back to what I was saying, hard assets is what you need to have. Food, right? Bags of grain if you eat grain. If you're a meat eater, smoked meats and canned meats and things like that. Not the healthiest, but if that's what you eat, that's what you eat. That's on you. But things that you can store for a while. Water. Especially if you own a house, there's no reason not to have these things where you could get a 5-gallon water barrel and put that on the side of your house and just have it. You know what I mean? These are investments. A lot of times, someone asked me today about investing it was last night, one of the youth, I'm sorry. He asked me about investing in the stock market, and I said, he's in his last year of school. He's studying computer science. And I said, man, the best investment you can make is to pay your debt off. If you're paying crazy interest rates, every month, that's going to cut into whatever your investment might be anyway. And on top of that, what I shared with him as well in terms of investment, education should always be your first investment. Invest here, because if you got something going here, you can make money out of thin air if you got something going on up top, right? So I told him, you need to be paying off your debt. That's the first investment you should make, right? But like I said, food, those are commodities. bullets, bullets, ammunition, right? These are all real investments. Don't just look at investments as like, I got to sign up for TD Ameritrade, or Schwab, and I have to now, or get myself a broker, or, or app, like Acorn and Cabbage, and now I'm investing in stock market. Those stock markets are great, but you're dealing with paper assets, and paper assets you can't really control. You can only watch and then make movements based on it. So a lot of it deals with creativity, but when you have hard assets, you can actually control the investment, right? So right now is the time for you to deal with investments you can control, because now that we are in a collapse, we are in a collapse. Again, Ford is laying off 40,000 people. You're going to tell me that? And if you add up all the people being laid off from Mattress Plus, Amazon's hiring freeze, Macy's, JCPenney's, Sears, Kmart, Toys R Us is closing, GMC, Starbucks is getting rid of 350 people at their corporate office, Verizon, AT&T, I mean, we could just go right through it. If you were to count all those people, we got like 100,000 people in America that are going to be without employment. Right, yeah, Sears, so, you got to think about how that's changing things going forward, how that's going to change the face of things. There's going to be more people doing things like driving for Lyft and driving for Uber, right? So that's going to be more saturated. So if you already drive for Lyft or you already drive for Uber, you're going to have more competition, because all these people who are not going to be able to get jobs because, and people are blaming it on the internet, but you got to understand that the internet only comprises 5 to 10% of the commerce that goes on in America, like e-commerce, something like 5. So it's a viable theory that the internet was the one that's getting rid of all of the brick and mortar stores. But again, the internet or Amazon and eBay, they don't account for the market share or the lion's share of what's consumed in America, right? So there's something else that's going on here, right? So investments don't have to be, I bought 10 shares of Apple, or I bought 10 shares in biotech, or whatever it is. Investments are like, I got more education. I learned how to purify water. I'm learning how to grow my own food. I got a couple boxes of ammunition. I invested money in going into the gun range. Remember, your first investment is here. I got me some water. I got some water. I got seeds. There's going to come a time where seeds are going to be a big commodity, right? Lighters. A regular big lighter that we take for granted now. You think about the things that people are storing up. You can buy these little junk, I'm calling them junk, but these U.S. Treasury bonds, right? People say, well, I'm putting my money in U.S. Treasury bonds. But if the system collapses, that's not worth anything anyway. So really the U.S. tries to trick you into buying those things. Don't get that crap. Right now, silver is at about $16 an ounce. Gold is a little bit over $1,000 an ounce, right? You can get silver and gold and put yourself in something that's a little bit less volatile, or you're less danger when there's inflation and whatnot. But again, if you're in a survival situation, a bar of gold isn't going to do anything for you. All right, so don't fall for everybody who tells you, the fiat currency is a problem. We need to get this. We need to get gold. We need to get silver. Yes, you can get some of that, but in the survival situation, you're going to want a cigarette lighter. Keep it. You're going to want a book of matches. If you're in a situation where there's an EMP, and or there's a solar flare, or there's a nuclear explosion which knocks out the electricity, you're going to want something basic like, can I light fire? Do I have some water to bathe with? Do I have enough hygiene products, right? Do I have, enough things like hydrogen peroxide to purify things? And, just different things like that. You're going to really want more than a bar of gold, right? So, think about your investments in a way that are relevant and not necessarily what people are just telling you. And even as you're teaching your children about different industries to go into, understand that certain industries, man, right, Lo just said you're going to want the toughest goons in your camp. That's real. You're going to want to align. I'm going to tell you the best thing you can do is align with communities of people who think like you. Because I posed the question to the youth last night as I was teaching the workshop, and one of the little sisters there said that she would grow her own food, right? And I was like, okay, that's cool. That's a good idea, right? But I said, but what if I show up to your house with a shotgun and 2 other people? She was like, well, I'm just going to give you my food, right? So I said, okay, so now you'll starve, right? And then I asked another little brother. He said the same thing, and he said, yeah, I guess I would have to give you the food, right? So, being able to align yourself. Oh, my music stopped again. Being able to align yourself with communities of people. There's a sleeve. With communities of people who think like you do is one of the best investments that you can make. Is one of the best. I'm sorry, I'm looking for the sleeve for this album. Is one of the best investments that you can make, right? Lining up with people who think like you do. I'll find it. Let me just put it where it's not going to get scratched. Let's see, what are we going to play next? So, Bootsy. Let me play some Bootsy. Maybe some Prince. I want to hear some Prince. You can see one of my youth drew on my album cover. I didn't even see that. That's old. Somebody's still gonna get tore up behind that door. I think I can just make out a name. I think I know who did that. Somebody gonna get it. I think I could just make that name up. I must have been done around 2009. Yeah. She gonna get a 2009 spanking. Anyway, so like I said, getting yourself around people who think like you do is critical. There we go. Yeah, that's the Prince. People who think like you. This is the time. I'm a be really honest with you. This is a time where men need to be acting like men. Like honestly, men need to be on their hustle and their grind in a real way, because like soy boys are not really gonna make it. Marshmallows are not really gonna make it. You're just not gonna make it, man. I'm not saying everybody needs to go out and buy a gun and start, like Yosemite Sam shooting up in the air, but definitely men need to be dealing with some level of defense, learning how to handle themselves in a certain kind of way. If you only know how to drive an automatic, learn how to drive a manual, because you never know when something happens and you have to jump into a manual and get your family somewhere. Bikes are a good investment. Bicycles, I'm saying, bicycles. Baskets for the bicycles. You never know when you're in a situation you got to bug out, and you may not be able to drive. If you live in a major city, you're not going to be able to move anywhere around in a major city. You can forget that, right? So you may have to jump on a bicycle with your family and bike to the mountains or wherever, or you may want to consider where you're living right now. But post-apocalypse need mental architects, blueprint builders. Yeah, absolutely. But, there's a time when you're not going to be able to build, and you're just going to really need to kind of join together, join forces, share resources, lock hands around a community. And even if you have bugging out and you have bugging in, you might have to stay in and say, okay, well, I'm going to defend this place where I'm at. Let's say if you live somewhere and someone has some acreage, and we say we can grow our food here, there's game to hunt, there's a defendable water source, so forth and so on. And I'm taking it to an extreme. By the way, it may not even be that extreme. I'm kind of taking it to an extreme. So let's just say a basic collapse, like all these people who are getting laid off right now. Let's just say what they're going through. And I'm saying, or like February 1st, the food stamp thing, where he's saying, if the partial shutdown doesn't end before February 1st, then people are not going to receive their food stamp benefits. That could be a collapse. You see, that could be a collapse for people. You know, based on some people's finances are held together by a very thin thread. And maybe grandma and grandpa who are on food stamps, they might have to come back in and move in with you. They may have to give up that place that their condo or their house or whatever, or everybody may have to move in with grandma and grandpa and make it work. Forced unity. You're gonna realize that we're not in a place anymore where you can play around like that and think that you have the luxury to argue and bicker and things like that. So there's a lot of things, you know, and I'm just kind of brushing along and I'm just kind of following up on what I had shared. But again, the biggest thing, and I'm putting this on the fellas a lot, because in a disaster situation, women, you're not going to be able to do much. I mean, you know, people will, that black girl magic and black girl rock, that ain't going to work. I'm just going to be honest with you. You know, you're going to need someone, when vicious times come, you're going to need someone who's vicious and strong enough to fend certain things off. So even some of you women who live in these remote places by yourself and all that, you may run into problems when you're in a society where you may have people who have mental illnesses. And they have mental illnesses, and now they might have mental illnesses, but at the same time, they're roaming the land now. They're not being watched over, or they weren't able to go to the pharmacy and get their medication. You know, so you're going to have to be a part of a different kind of society that kind of keeps even that out. Not to mention what may happen with some of the law enforcement that may decide to go rogue, even more rogue than they've already been going, right? You may have to deal with that too. You know, so again, like I said, it's a time for people to kind of get together. And it's been a time for us to get together, you know. But sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures. What would you say, Lo? Remember the Depression in those times, the thieves were heroes. Yeah. But you know what made the big difference with the Depression and why this is going to be worse? People weren't using credit during the Great Depression. Number one, people typically owned their homes, and people didn't mind diversifying their career. So you might have had someone who was a dentist or a doctor, but on the weekends they were a plumber or a carpenter, right? So they had a totally different level of skill set. Also, people tended to live together more back in that time during the Great Depression. So you might have lived in a home with your aunt, your uncle, you know, unless your aunt got married, she lived at home. So it might have been your parents, your aunt, your uncle. They might have been married too. You might have lived with your cousins. Your grandmother probably also lived there, especially if your grandfather was dead. So you might have had like a full, large, extended family living in one place, right? And again, people had different sets of skills, and chances are grandma grew some food in the yard too, and people didn't eat out like they eat now. And again, like I said, you didn't have the debt-based system in the same way that you have now, where everything is now based around credit. So what happens when the ATM card isn't working, the credit card isn't working, and your cash stores run out, and you don't really have anything viable to barter, nor do you have any really viable bartering skills. You can't do any carpentry. You don't know how to hold a gun. You don't know how to fight. You don't know how to purify water. You don't know how to grow food. You know, well, what did you do before the crash? I was a puppeteer. I made children's lives happy. You know what I mean? So you're going to have to really kind of develop some other things. Now, I saw Sherry said, how long do we have to prepare? How long? Now. How long? Right now. I almost threw this candle across the room. You got to do it now. It already started. The crash has started. That's what I'm saying. You know, do you foresee something happening? I do. Oh, you must have tuned in late. But some of these guys are sissies and scared. Well, if some of these guys are sissies, something's wrong with you for consulting with them. Natural Roots in NYC. I'm not allowing that excuse anymore. Or like how women try to talk about F-boys. What are you doing with them? That's your fault. Stay away from a fearful person is a dangerous person. Never forget that. A fearful person is a dangerous person. So if you're surrounding yourself with individuals like that, then you're already done. But as far as how long you got to prepare, If you work for GM or you work for Ford or you work for Verizon or you work for AT&T or you work for Starbucks or Sears or Macy's or Lord and Taylor's is closing their flagship store, the one in Manhattan, the famous one. They're closing their headquarters, right? If you work for any one of those companies, then it's here now. The collapse has already started. Especially, again, if you're at an age where you don't have a lot of job marketability value on the marketplace. You might be 40, 50 years old. No one's trying to hire you, right? So the collapse already started. So for those of you who eat tuna fish and stuff, when you go to the store to buy a tuna fish, buy an extra can. Buy 5 extra cans and just keep them. For those of you who eat oatmeal, get the big giant family size, start stacking them up and piling them up and keeping them. You know, things like that. And I'm giving like, that's basic stuff, but, you know, have those stores right now, you know, for a rainy day. Now, Mama Kaninka says, Peace, Haru, all of this information is vital. There's nothing like getting caught by the element of surprise, and your SHIT is not in order. You know. Oh, don't try to backswim now, Natural Roots, NYC, LOL. I don't have that type, but I see him. I don't see him. I don't see sissies. I don't see weak males. I don't see them. I don't have them in my environment. I don't see emasculated Amazon females who don't know how to be women. I don't see them. I step right through them like cockroaches. I don't even look. So if you see them, that means you're still on that frequency. Raise your frequency and you'll become invisible to them and they'll become invisible to you. Every man that I interact with is a warrior. Straight up. And I've said that before. And I only interact with men. If I'm interacting with a woman, she's either my student or I'm banging her. She's one of my women. I'm just going to give it to you the way it is. I don't have female friends because I don't have anything to talk about with a female, and you don't talk about anything that's interesting. And any men that I'm with, if they're not a warrior, we don't have anything to talk about. He's going to say, so, what do you think of this Trump guy? Stupid conversations like that. Yeah, weather's crazy, isn't it? Or, you know, I was talking to my wife the other day, man. She's really a good woman, man. And I don't want to have them stupid ass conversations. So every man that I'm with is a warrior. Every man. The stuff that we talk about is warrior level stuff. We talk about building businesses. We might share some game on how we're controlling situations, or we might talk about things like this, like prepping and things like, so, you know, that's a part of getting around people who think like you, who, you know, if times get bad, that you know you can rely on. They know they can rely on you and you can rely on them. And that's even in your mating. You got to get with people who are like you, so you're not going to be arguing about silly things. You know how many relationships probably went through turmoil just in the past holiday season? With people who wanted to celebrate Christmas and other people was like, I'm not getting into that. You know, so you gotta have an environment and a circle around you right now where you're moving like one organism. You know, and that's why I say, even with some of the guys who reached out to me and were like, so what do you mean by commodities? Nah, man, you ain't riding with me, Jack. Because that means if you asking me that now, how much other stuff do you not know? You know what I mean? Like, what if something happens and we got to go up a fire escape? Can you grab the bottom of the fire escape and pull yourself up? Can you do one pull-up? One. One for freedom. Can you do a pull-up for freedom? If not, what I'm supposed to do, like wait for you and try to pull you up? Because I can lift my big 260-something pound self up. I can do pull-ups, I can do dips, I can do everything. Like, and I'm ridiculously flexible. You ain't got to wait for me. I'm good. You mean tell me I got to wait for you? They're just going to have to get you. You know, so that's what I'm saying. Like, preparation is now. Preparedness is now. You got to do it right now. You know, there's no more waiting or assuming that things are going to be the way they've been. Because like I said, if you work for any one of those companies, it's already started. Your apocalypse has already begun. You see? So it's going to spread. If you work for Ford or you work for GM and you got laid off, or you work for Amazon, or, well, like I said, Amazon has a hiring freeze. So, you know, if you're trying to work for Amazon, right? But if you work for Verizon or any of those other ones, your apocalypse has started already. You see? So it's not a thing of waiting to when this thing pops off. It's already popped off. That's the reality of it. It's already popped off, and you got to start joining with people who think like you. And like I said, the investment now has to be hard assets. Paper assets are cool, but the reality is you can get rich during a collapse if you just wait. Like the housing bust of 2008, man. I'm still wondering my Isley cover's album cover is. Actually, while I'm talking, let me look for it. So, like 2008, a lot of people became millionaires because they were buying property. Natalie Cole. They were buying property for like pennies on a dollar. Oh, I should have played "We Are the World." I know that's what y'all really wanted to hear. "We Are the World." I know y'all did, and I'm not talking about just a song. I got the whole "We Are the World" album. What the heck is my Isley Brothers album cover? Right behind me. So, like I was saying, hard assets mean that you're storing up food. You're getting food right now. Get yourself a piece of junk land. The wise wealthy are buying land outside of the country and getting precious metals and storing precious metals outside of the country and building bunkers and land outside of the country. You know, if you're not able to do that, and yes, I do actually have a pair of Techniques 1200s, but but that's what am I playing on? These are Stantons that I'm playing. I got a lot of turntables. These are Stantons, but yeah, the wise ones, they're building fortresses outside the country, and yeah, then you know there was a whole "We Are the World" album. Yes, there was. You know, you don't really want to listen to it though. You can skip that one. You know, yeah, it was a collector's edition. I mean, yeah, I mean it has some decent stuff on it. You know, Huey Lewis was on it. Chicago, Steve Perry, Prince. He did that song for the Tears in Your Eyes. Kenny Rogers, if you like Kenny Rogers, right? Tina Turner did one. Northern Lights, but that was like a combination, that Northern Lights joint, because I had Joni Mitchell on it. Oscar Peterson was on it. Bryan Adams was on that one. Bruce Springsteen did a song. If you like Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, you know. But y'all probably don't like any of those people, so so yeah, you could probably skip the "We Are the World" album. But yeah, so basically, I just kind of wanted to share, you know, a little bit on that, man, because people were asking me questions, like I'm saying, for all you men, because I gave very short answers, and I could tell people were like, well, could you expand more on you know, investing in commodities? Bro, just say you don't know what the word means. Don't come at me. I'm not stupid. I've been teaching for a long time. I know when somebody doesn't know something. You know, but you should know. But like I said, keep it simple. Stock up on ammunition. Stock up on water. Stock up on food. Clear your debt. Debtor's prison is not outlawed in this country. You should understand that. If you got some serious debt and things get really crazy, because if you think about it now, even when telemarketers call you, not telemarketers, but credit collectors call you now for money, they're really aggressive. You know, they hire like the rudest, nastiest people. They don't even hire because they're usually law firms doing it, because lawyers can't find work anymore, so they become credit collectors, right? So imagine if they had some level of militarism behind them. You're going to jail for that. You know what I mean? So if you can clear debt, clear debt. You know, if we can't buy land outside of the country, why can't you buy land outside the country? Buy land outside. Why can't you buy land outside the country? But understand it's a worldwide thing. But you can have land, buy land here. Here's make it simple. But again, why can't you buy land outside the country? I'm gonna start there. But buy land outside the cities. That's where you start. Get land outside of the cities. That's a simple thing, right? City living is going to kill you during any kind of collapse, right? It's going to kill you. Learn how to shoot. Yeah. Chief, we discovered Femi has a serious health condition today. Oh, I left a message on your office voicemail. I can expand further tomorrow. Okay. All right. Okay, I got you. Thank you. Barbara Bryan. Byron. Sorry about that. Okay. Um. I took my mind somewhere else. Um. But yeah. Okay. So like Omar is saying, the judge will issue a bench warrant for your failure to appear. Right. So yeah, the warrant means that they're going to confiscate you. That's what a warrant does. It means they're going to confiscate you. That's what the word is, and they can kill you during that confiscation. Right. So yeah, hard assets are land, food, water, ammunition. All these things are valuable investments. And like I said, those things will be a more valuable investment to some of the things you might think are investment today. Because there'll come a time where you can't use your cryptocurrency or your paper stocks for anything. But you can use, if you had a box full of outdoor lighters, butane lighters, that would be very valuable, right? If you had a bunch of water purification pills, that would be very valuable. Tobacco, tobacco and rolling paper would be very valuable. 60-liter military grade backpacks would be very valuable, right? Bicycles, tire patches for bicycles would be very valuable. You see, generators. And I'm not talking about generators that use gas, because there may come a time where it's hard for you. Because again, if there's an EMP and there's no electricity, then the electric pumps at the gas stations won't work. So you won't be able to get gas anyway, right? But you get one that works on solar. You see? So these are all... music. These are all real investments. And sometimes people don't look at them as investments, because they're thinking like, again, investments are stock market, EFTs, mutual funds, things like that. But no, like I said, even your education is an investment. What you're doing right now, the time that you're taking to listen to what I'm talking about, is an investment. All those things are investments. What's to say? I told my family if shtf, the land we got in the country, is the rallying point. Good. Yeah, man. Make sure there's something up there. Make sure they can get to it. Because then what happens if cell phones aren't working? So you got to also have a way of communicating. I'm trying not to, didn't want to go too deep into all of that, but, turn my prints up. Young lady I work with already has a thriving restaurant in Uganda. I'm looking at land in Ghana now. Good. You might end up being neighbors with me. But yeah, so like I said, man, you got solar. She says I need a boat. Maybe. Or you just need to get out of NYC. Or have an ability to get out of NYC, because getting across that Hudson could be problematic. Right? If you're in NYC, right? That could be, if you say, okay, well, I'm going to get across, because remember, Manhattan is an island. Let's say if you live in New York City, or Manhattan specifically. I got to get across that water. Let's say if I go across to Jersey, then I go up to Palisades and try to go all the way up to Bear Mountain, or you could just go straight up and try to go to Canada. But that may be problematic too. So I'm just saying, like, I'm not trying to turn it into a whole like prepper thing. That wasn't my intention, but I was just kind of elaborating on what I had shared during that time. And like I said, it was only really men who were like, or males. I don't mean to diss you guys, but come on. Who were like, what do you mean by commodities? And like I'm saying, if you don't know, oh, you're in Brooklyn, so you see what happened the other day, Natural Roots NYC, with the bridge, where there was 40,000 people on the Brooklyn Bridge and they couldn't get across. All right, that's my time. This thing's getting ready to end anyway. But anyway, I already elaborated. All right, I don't want to turn into a prepper thing. Maybe I'll talk about prepping some other time, or bugging out and things like that. But just elaborating on the reading. All right, I'm out. Peace.